Welcome back to the 3x5 Live
podcast.
On this podcast, we talk about mindset, mindfulness, productivity, self-care. We took last week off, as we do every year.
For Knee High 4th of July.
Yes, for 4th of July. The week before that, Jessie did solo act. Last week, I did a solo act. So we're finally here together.
We are.
And we are recording this on July 16th. And I just realized it's 2 years of launching the 3x5 Life product.
Oh, it's a little anniversary.
It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
Time has flown. I never thought we'd be sitting here 2 years later doing some of the collab work we're doing with corporations and having thousands of customers and doing this podcast with my lovely wife.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, it has been. So this week, we talk on this podcast a lot about identity, goals, habit change. And I've heard something recently, and I thought it would be a neat way to kind of portray those same things, but using different terminology and different lens to view that topic on. And it all comes down to standards, like our standards that we keep for ourselves and how they correlate with our goals, actions, and outcomes in life. So basically, if we all have internal standards, and then there's also standards and expectations that our peer group have upon us. So when I think about like the standards I keep for myself and the internal expectations I have, a lot of times those standards are actually what drives your goals. A lot of times, or drives yourself to your goals, to your results. And a lot of times you don't hit your goals. Like, if your goals are big enough and audacious enough, you may not hit them. But if you're driving your standards, believing in yourself, then eventually, even if you fall short, you're still achieving the daily grind of trying to move yourself towards that goal. Did that make sense at all? A
little bit, but I want you to kind of talk about, because we were just having this dialogue in the car. What is a standard? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, is a standard like a value? Is a standard like a...
Yeah, I think a standard is almost like your internal value, your internal identity. Like if I have a standard of that when I go to work, I am going to eat the frog in the morning and get my hardest task done. And that's a standard I hold myself. And if I don't do that, I'm going against my standard. I'm going against my internal values identity with that specific item. And if I do that and I hold myself to that standard, the outcome, the result of that is bigger sales growth, more customers, more revenue. So that's one example of a standard.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like a standard would be something like an action item that you hold yourself accountable to in order to reach a larger goal or outcome.
Correct. And also,
this actually reminds me, and I just was thinking about this. So in education, from a teacher's lens, we have learning goals, right? So at the end of the year, my kids are supposed to know from a biology standpoint, like cells and, an organization of cellular organisms, whatever it is. So you have this overarching goal that we're trying to get the kids to learn. Well, within those goals, we have standards, and each standard is broken into smaller chunks of learning that if we do that, then ultimately the higher learning of the ultimate goal would be achieved. So it makes me think about that idea of how do we take a goal and align it to our value system and our standards, and then how do those standards then come together to create the greater outcome?
Yes.
Kind of?
I would agree with that. But in your example, though, I think you're talking about standards as almost like little bite-sized steps to get you to something. I'm talking standards as more as like your internal values, identity that you believe in yourself. And you could have bad standards. You could be the party boy that shows up and you're the life of the party. And that's like how you hold yourself. So if you don't show up that way, you're almost going against your standards.
But that's like an external standard of how other people view you.
But that might be how you view yourself and how you think others want to view you.
So you put that, you embody that around a specific group of people in order to hit this expectation of the group.
Yeah. So a standard, if I went out with a group of my peers and I ordered a cheesesteak, fries, and a Coke, they know me, and that's not a standard that Bryan would adhere to himself.
So then there's the goal to live your standards internally and externally so that you have almost a sense of like accountability. So would you think that your peer group should then say, yo, dude, what's up? Why are you ordering a cheesesteak? This isn't in alignment to like your value system or your standards.
That's a great segue, because I think you have your internal standards and you have your peer group standards. And this is where you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with comes into play, because if you hang out with a certain type of group that holds you to a high regard and that drive you and push you forward, that wouldn't be acceptable to them, and they would call you out on that if you're doing something that's outside. Let's just say you wanted to do something that was kind of sketchy in business. Well, they would hold you to your standards, that your personal value, integrity. That's not
honesty,
something.
right?
That's not something that I see Bryan as or Jessie as. So your peer group should drive or push back on when your standards aren't in alignment with who they view you as or who you portray yourself as.
Okay, so like let's zoom out, because I like this, and I think we've definitely given them lots of different ideas. And obviously, we're unpacking
some great banter.
Unpacking this in real time, because I'm trying to understand it too. And even when we were talking about this topic to bring up, I think we both had different ideas of it. But from an action step standpoint, like what would you suggest? So like, is the first step to look at like your value system, your core values, and then to develop specific standards that you hold yourself accountable to?
Yes.
And then is the goal then to take those standards and transfer them when you are like out or like anywhere? Like, are these like universal standards for like work? Like, like honesty and integrity is definitely a value for you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you should carry that into your friendships and your relationships, just as you do your business partners and your whatever. Yep. So should they be universal, or can they be categorical? Like you have like a category. Is categorical a word?
I think it's a fantastic word.
I'm going to look that one up.
I don't know. I think you have standards within certain aspects of your life. Yeah, you have values, which would be integrity and honesty and things like that. But my standards of what I hold myself to is, I think, kind of different than that. Of how I'm going to show up each day and how I'm going to operate within each day. If I'm not congruent with what I'm eating, how I'm moving my body, how I'm operating at work, the standards I hold myself to, then at the end of the day, I'm going to feel off or just not in alignment to, it wasn't a good day. But you could have, your standards also could be, I sit on the couch and watch Netflix and don't do anything.
The way you're phrasing it, I think this aligns perfectly with identity.
Mm-hmm.
What is your identity within different categories of your life? So maybe this is the exercise, or maybe this is the like put a pin in it and think about it. Like, what are your standards for yourself? What are those consistent either practices or value systems or things that you do in each situation of your life, right? So like work, relationships, and then the idea of like, if you can communicate with others who are close to you in like your inner circle, what those standards are for yourself, and then almost ask for an accountability. Like, I feel like you and I could do that for each other.
Right.
Like, this is who I'm trying to be or want to be, or this is what is in alignment to me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I'm not doing that, you need to call me on that and to ask me why. Because sometimes we get stuck in these practices that have no like intention to them. We just kind of like flow through like zombie mode life.
Yep.
And I think sometimes it takes an outside person to kind of call you on your shit, to be like, sorry, if there's kids in the car.
Yeah, no, I think your standards could, if you don't like your standards, you can change your standards in the sense of, if let's say you go out, and I hate continuing to use food as an example, let's say you go out with colleagues every day for lunch and you always get cheeseburger and fries. And you're like, my new standard for myself is I'm going to be the person that orders a salad. That's a standard I'm going to hold myself to. And now that's something you commit to, changing your standard of belief system of, now I'm going to be the person that goes to that lunch and orders a salad.
Okay.
So
then that's very situational.
It is very situational.
But if you're somebody who goes out to lunch frequently, then it's something that can be repeated and then honed.
Yeah, it can be repeated and honed.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it's something that, like, a lot of people go out to lunch or go grab something quickly with colleagues every single day.
Or like for teachers, like when I sit down for my planning period, my standard is first to not check my email, like to get off of email and to tackle like my greatest task first. Like, so it could be any type of like,
and if you
set like almost like an action goal for that specific situation.
And you'll know you're not living your standard. If you check email first, you get caught in email, then all the stuff that you needed to get done doesn't get done.
Right.
So that could also happen.
I hope that this is making sense.
I just thought it was a really interesting, sometimes words or sometimes a different phrase really hits home with people. Like there's so many situations where somebody says the same type of thing about habit change or what have you, and then somebody says it the same thing but slightly different, and it suddenly hits home. And that's what I was really hoping in this podcast, that like maybe this term or this way of looking at it could hit home with like 5 people, and it changes how they view themselves, their lives, and creating better habits through standards.
Right.
So
we said standards a lot. I bet you we could play a game.
Yeah.
Of how many times in the episode we said the word standards.
Like a drinking game?
No, because that's not in alignment to your standard.
It isn't. That's true.
All right, friends.
That's what we have this week. Just some dialogue back and forth with Jessie and I. And until next week.
We hope you have a good one. Take care.
Bye now.
See ya.
We are all